Hi, welcome. I'm Anika Spencer, and this is our vinyasa flow class for today. Today we're going to focus on hip stability and specifically how hip stability can actually start to support us when we're in balance. And while we're inside of that stabilizing experience, we're also going to look at some of the mobility, this range of motion or flexibility, the way we can apply that while we're in a steady space. In addition to that, we're going to get some flow happening today. We're going to embrace some movement. And it's said that one of the ways that we can process emotions or the experiences that we're having is through breathing as well as movement itself. So if you're looking to finish out a stress response and return back to a calm homeostasis, or if you're in a learning experience where you are feeling a lot of emotions and you want to stay present to that and continue the process of learning, growing, and even releasing, a little bit of movement and some deep breath can go a long way in that emotional process, even though that might be a physical experience. So to start, close your eyes and sit up nice and tall in a comfortable seat. Start to notice your breath, observing what's happening in the body. Then slowing down the breath. Perhaps imagining that the breath is passing through a hollow tube right in front of the spine. Creating a place where the breath can travel all the way in and move all the way back out. If you're not already there, add in your ujjayi, that slight friction to the throat, that warm drag. And come forward onto hands and knees, tabletop position. Bring the breath with you and place your hands beneath your shoulders. Knees can be right beneath the hips. As you inhale, tip the tail up as you arch the spine. As you exhale, round the spine, look in and curl. Inhale as you arch. Exhale as you round. Inhale as you arch the spine. Exhale as you round the spine. On your inhale, come back through center. Take your right foot and reach it backwards towards the wall behind you. Start out by leveling the hips. Hug your outer hips in, but broaden isometrically the inner thighs. Imagine the inner thigh, that space closest to the groin or that inside edge of the hamstring, is doing the lifting to help you stay square. On your next inhale, hug your right knee high and wide towards your right shoulder, right armpit. As you exhale, sweep that right knee behind your left and sink your hips back towards your heels for a stretch. On your inhale, float the heel up. As you exhale, hug your right knee high and wide towards the tricep or shoulder. As you inhale, stretch the heel back. As you exhale, bind the knees and sink your hips back towards the heels. Once more, inhale, float up that inner thigh. Exhale, hug the knee high and wide. Inhale, stretch the heel back. Exhale, wrap your right knee behind your left, sink your hips back towards the heels. Come back through center, place the knees on the earth. Then take your left toes and flip them out to the side and wrap your right hip to stack on top of your left, reaching your right hand towards the ceiling for a supported side plank. Lower your right foot towards the earth. If it's not already there, then stretch your right arm up and overhead, finding a little side body length. And stretch that hand back towards the ceiling. Square yourself off towards the earth. Come back to your table. Grounding down into your right hand, take your left hand up and towards the ceiling, broadening for a twist. As you exhale, release that hand down and towards the earth. Cat-cow again. As you inhale, tip the tail up, reach your heart forward. As you exhale, round the spine, look in. Inhale to arch. Exhale to round. Inhale to arch the spine. Exhale to round your spine. Come back through center, waistline is in and on. Then take your left foot and reach it backwards and behind you. Think of rotating your inner thigh towards the ceiling. So for most of us, that feels like an exaggeration. However, we tend to turn the toes out to the side and even swing the hips out to one edge. So keep holding your right hip in and really exaggerate or emphasize that inner thigh lift. On your inhale, press the heel back. As you exhale, hug it up and towards the tricep. Inhale, heel stretches back. Then bind that left knee behind your right and sink your hips back towards your heels. Inhale, come back through center, lift the left heel. Exhale, hug that left knee high and wide towards the tricep. Inhale, heel stretches back. Exhale, bind that left knee behind your right, sink your hips back. Inhale, heel floats up. Exhale, hug the knee high and wide. Inhale, heel stretches back. Then bind the knee behind. Once more, float up the left heel. Keep your low back long and supported. As you exhale, hug the knee high and wide. Inhale, stretch the heel back. Then bind it behind and sink your hips to the heels. Come back to forward. And then wrap your right toes off to the side. Take your left hand up, wrapping your left hip to stack on top of the right. Keep pressing into the floor to move the right top of your shoulder away from your ear. Take your left arm, reach it above the head. Feel that in waistline and outer hip perhaps. Feeling that whole chain of command down the side of the legs. Even through the fingers. Stretch your left hand back towards the ceiling and square yourself off. And take your right hand up towards the ceiling, opening up your chest for a twist. Then as you exhale, lower the hand towards the earth. Widen your knees, toes can come to kiss. Sink your hips back in towards the heels for child's pose. Sometimes it's nice to kitten paw the floor, or curl the fingers in towards the palms and press into the backs of the hands. Come back forward onto hands and knees, tabletop position. Then curl your toes under and elevate your hips back to high for downward facing dog. Keep pressing into the first finger and thumb, lengthening your outer arms.
but relaxing your head, relaxing the neck, the jaw. Lift your heels, bend your knees. Take as many steps as you like to bring your feet forward to meet your hands. On your inhale, find a halfway lift as you extend the spine. As you exhale, bow back into your legs, forward fold. Circle your arms all the way up to tall. We'll stretch up and connect the hands. Then guide your hands down and into your heart. On your inhale, stretch long through the waist as you reach up. As you exhale, bow into your legs and fold. On your inhale, halfway lift. As you exhale, plant your palms and shift it back to plank. You can lower to the belly for cobra or just halfway towards the earth, chaturanga. Press away from the mat for upward facing dog, broad tops of the shoulders. Exhale for downward facing dog, hips go back to high. Just like before, lift with your inner thigh, so we're keeping the hips square and level. As you exhale, bring your right foot forward and in between your hands. Take your back heel, press it down to the floor, probably about 45 degrees. Then lengthen all the way up for warrior one. Pretty deep bend in that front knee. It's anchoring towards above the ankle. Powerful back thigh, so quadricep on, waistline in and on. And press equally into both sides of that back foot. And we're turning the hips towards square, but it doesn't have to arrive. Palms can face one another to emulate that external rotation of downward facing dog. And release the hands down towards the earth. Shift it back into your plank position. Take that same chaturanga, lowering halfway down. Press away from the earth, upward facing dog. Downward facing dog, hips go back to high. Lift with your left thigh in breath. As you exhale, bring the foot forward in between the hands. Anchor your back heel down and towards the earth and rise up for your warrior one. Feel some relaxation in that inner top shoulder and power up the back quadricep as you turn the hips towards the top of your mat. Any tweak in the knee, you'll let that idea go. We're not trying to get heavy through the inner knee. Pressing down through both sides of both feet. Staying true to the breath, still breathing fully and deeply. Nice. Release your hands down and towards the earth. Shift it back to plank. Take that slow journey through chaturanga, but try to keep your neck in line with the rest of the spine, so we're not dipping the face towards the floor, upward facing dog. Downward facing dog, hips go back to high. On your inhale, lift your right leg again. Exhale, bring the right foot forward and through between your hands. Press that back heel down. Inhale, warrior one. Then as you exhale, shift forward and lift your back heel. So we're moving back into the squaring off of the hips, feeling the outer hips turn on and hug inward. And then once you feel your two hip points turning straight towards the earth or straight towards the top of your mat, press forward into your front right foot. Lift your back leg with that inner thigh, so it feels like that inner line of the leg is doing the leading. And while that might feel like an exaggeration, for most of us it's not. You can have the hands at the heart or by the sides of the hips, woohoo, but really we're just focusing on that sensation of squaring off. Good. Step it back. You can rotate the heel back to the floor, warrior one again in breath. Exhale, release your hands to the mat and shift it back to plank. Slow chaturanga, letting these chaturangas warm the body. If you're already feeling warm, they might start to feel redundant and you can let them go. Inhale, lift with that left leg. Exhale, left foot comes forward, back heel down. Inhale, rise up, warrior one. Exhale, tip forward, lift the heel, and we're rotating the hips so that right hip bone is looking straight ahead. That's probably the trickiest part of your warrior three, as well as sometimes we let the hips kind of widen and sag, and we're gonna hug in from either side and really activate that outer hip stability. Float up your back thigh, inhale. You decide with the hands, really emphasizing the lift to the back leg and the outer hips knitting to support you. Check in with your head with this curl of the chest and shoulders. We'll keep lengthening out the spine. Step it back for warrior one. Inhale. Exhale, release the hands to the mat and shift back to plank. Slow chaturanga, lowering halfway towards the earth or all the way. Then upward facing dog or cobra. Downward facing dog, hips go back to high. Lift your heels, bend your knees, and take as many steps as you need to bring your feet forward to meet your hands. On your inhale, find your halfway lift. As you exhale, bow back into fold. Circle the arms all the way up. We'll stretch to tall. As you exhale, guide your hands to your heart. Rooting down into your right foot. Draw your left knee in and towards the chest. Hug in that outer right hip, then rotate your left knee to look to the side. You're just pausing and widen out that outer edge of that extending thigh. And also rotate your outer hip out and down towards the floor. And imagine hugging your inner ankle forward so you're turning the hip from the power of the hip. And you can have a hand on the thigh or hands resting. If hands at the heart gives you a sense of ease, then great. And then hug in the heel a little more, wrap the outer hip down. Then bring that back through center and release. Root into the opposite foot. Press down into your left foot. Draw your right knee in towards the chest. Then widen out that right knee. See if your left hip tries to follow it, and that's going to create unnecessary pressure or torque in the knee. We'll keep the kneecap and the hip point pointing straight ahead, and that will reveal the true mobility of the hip rather than our ability to turn the whole body. Yeah, so isolating into the hip. Outer hip rotates out and down towards the floor, and as a byproduct, you might feel like you're hugging that right heel forward towards that top of your mat if that's where you're facing. Yeah, and then I have to remind myself to relax my shoulders, take one more breath. Bring the knee forward and release. Switch the weight over to that opposite foot, lift that left thigh back up and in, then rotate the knee to the side but keep turning the outer hip out and down, then place that foot on the inner shin or the inner upper thigh. Sometimes when the foot comes into the inner thigh, that outer hip on the opposite side swings wide, so keep hugging it in and stretching the waistline up. Hands at the heart are great. Maybe you want to extend the arms, getting playful, or even fly the arms around in space if you want to test your balance. Yeah, however you move the hands in space, create some intention so you can feel where the hands are traveling through the air. And then gather your hands back into the heart and release the foot. Opposite way, root down into the foot, draw that right knee in towards the chest, then rotate that knee to look out to the side. Good, foot's gonna come into the inner shin or the inner upper thigh. Pausing, find your place of peace inside of this balance. You can fly the arms if that feels appropriate to you. Then gather your hands back into your heart. Release, take that foot down and towards the earth, still facing the top of the mat. Inhale, stretch up. Exhale to bow in. Take your halfway lift, extend the spine. Then plant the palms and shift it back to plank. Option to take your slow chaturanga, then upward facing dog or cobra. Downward facing dog, hips go back to high. On your inhale, lift your right leg. As you exhale, right foot forward. Back heel plants in breath. Exhale, warrior three, we're squaring the hips. Inhale, step back, reach up. Exhale, hands to the earth. Shift it back to plank. Option to hold here if you like those chaturangas, if you're feeling strong, great. There's no need to go through the redundancy if it's not helpful to you. Inhale, lift that left leg. Exhale, bring it forward. Feeling that small opening, rise up. Intentionally squaring, root forward, float up that back thigh. Step it back, inhale. Exhale, release your hands down to the earth and shift back to plank. Slow chaturanga, then upward facing dog. Downward facing dog, hips go back to high. Lift your heels, bend your knees, take as many steps as you like to bring your feet to your hands. On your inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, bow back in. Circle the arms up, stretch to tall, palms can connect above the head. Then guide your hands into your heart. Take your hands, stretch them all the way up. Then bend your elbows and bring them to the height of the shoulders. Rotate your palms to look down towards the floor. Then start to thread here through the upper back, just loosening that upper back space as you twist. Try to keep your abdomen, your belly button pointing straight ahead, as well as your gaze looking straight ahead. Most of us tend to turn to the side and even turn the knees, right? So we're going to hold the hips square, even hold the lower core square. And feel these rib cage area starting to shift side to side. Great way to stimulate some thoracic mobility, that upper back mobility. And that upper back mobility can be a way that we tend to the health and care of the lower spine and even the neck. Now, they like to overcompensate when this space is sticky. Good, then release that, come back to your center and soften your hands by your side. Take a cleansing breath, inhale through your nose. Exhale out your mouth. Root into your right foot, draw your left knee in towards the chest and flex it. Stack that ankle on top of your standing right thigh, then sit your hips lower towards figure four. We're still finding some stability, so if one hip likes to swing wide, you're gonna hug it in. Go ahead, feel the waistline knitting in, you're still stretching the ribs away from the hips. Then press firmly with your left ankle into the top of the thigh, just for one breath. Feel that stimulation of the muscle of the hip, we call it active release. Then as you exhale, soften that effort, draw the hips a little lower if that's available. 2 more times, press the outer ankle into the top of the thigh, feel that stimulation of the hip muscle. Then release a little of that effort, but you'll keep the ankle flexed. Once more, press the outer edge of the ankle into the top of the thigh. And then soften in. Good. The experiment now is to see when you can lift the ankle away from the thigh using this range of motion as you come up. So press down into the floor and imagine that you're going to lift the ankle away from the top of the leg as you do. Hold it there, hugging the inner ankle in. Oh yes, then try the opposite way. Hug the outer ankle out. Yeah, that one's normally the pinchy one, eh? Then release that foot down and towards the floor. Nice. Pause, close your eyes, and listen to the difference of the 2 hips. Yeah, sometimes that's motivational. Good, then bring your weight over and into your left foot. Draw your right knee in towards the chest. Flex the ankle and stack it on top of your left. Draw the hips back, but keep your spine in a neutral position, whatever that means to you in your body. Some of us tend to round, so we have to open up the chest and even feel a sense of almost like we're arching. For others, we already come into that arch position naturally, and that means we're going to have to contain the core and be temperate with that bowing or extending of the spine. Yeah, hips are squaring. We're holding stable first and exploring flexibility second. And that'll give us our true range of motion rather than a fictional one. Illusion. And then press the outer ankle into the knee. Get active in this, like you're gonna root down. And take a deep, slow breath. And then soften some of that effort, and there may be room for the hips to get a little closer towards the floor. There's no arrival point, we're just looking for sensation. Try it again. Press down into the outer ankle, get active, engaged, and that might be 30, maybe even 50% of effort. Doesn't have to be maximum. And then release. Good. One more time. Press down through the outer ankle. And then release. Get heavier in the hips. Good, then see if you can take this with you, actively utilizing it as you come up. Start to lift the outer ankle away from the leg, still rotating through the hip. And then try it the opposite way. Take that heel out to wide, and the range of motion on this side might be different. Mine is. And then release, take both feet to the floor. Close the eyes and feel the distinctive differences between the two hips. Feel that rhythm of your breath. And then we'll move it through when you're familiar with the flow by this point. As you inhale, circle the arms up. As you exhale, bow in. Inhale, extend your spine. Exhale, plant your palms and shift it back to plank. Slow chaturanga, or an extra breath in plank if you wish. Upward facing dog. Downward facing dog, hips to high. Square hips as you lift that right inner thigh. Exhale, bring the right foot forward and through. Back heel roots down. Inhale, warrior one. Square the hips again as you square off and come into warrior three. Warrior one, in breath, feel your waistline lengthen, press into both feet. As you exhale, palms go to the mat, shift it back to plank. Chaturanga is here, halfway to the floor, then up dog. Downward facing dog. Inhale, lift your left thigh. Exhale, left foot between your hands. Back heel glues down. Inhale, rise to tall. Exhale, warrior three. Hips are squaring and hugging in. Warrior one, hips are still hugging in from the sides. Exhale, hands to the mat, shift back to plank. Slow chaturanga, lowering halfway or all the way. Upward facing dog or cobra. Downward facing dog, hips go back up to high. Lift your heels, bend your knees, step, walk. Maybe you hop lightly to the top of your mat. On your inhale, extend the spine. As you exhale, bow back in. Circle the arms up, stretch to tall, palms connect above the head. Then guide your hands down and into your heart. Figure four again, root into your left foot, draw your right knee in and towards the chest. Flex the ankle and stack it on top of the knee, then hips go low. If you'd like, you can take this opportunity to twist, taking the back of your right hand to your left foot and reaching, to your right foot, then reaching your left hand up. Or go towards your expression of an arm balance. Hands bind, right foot wraps around the outer left arm, and your left heel might float away from the mat. If you want, use that hamstring strength, that squaring hip variation, to lift your back leg. And it's that same energy of your three-legged dog. Take your last breath wherever you are, playful, exploratory, or simple. How beautiful is simple? Then lift back up, come out of your arm balance, and release, coming all the way up to tall, foot back to the mat. Opposite way, draw your left knee in towards the chest, flex it, and stack it on top of your right thigh, then sink your hips low. You have that opportunity to twist. If you want to take that into your arm balance again, you're definitely invited. Utilizing the variation that works best for you, whichever one keeps you present. And if a challenge is what keeps you present, incorporate that in your practice. This is for you and facilitated by you. Take your last breath wherever you are. Then find your way back out, coming all the way up to stand tall and releasing both feet to the mat. Slowly make your way to the earth, coming all the way down to the floor, sitting yourself to the mat. And then recline all the way down and onto the mat, onto the earth. And take your right foot and stretch it up and towards the ceiling. Then stack that right ankle right on top of your left knee. And rather than trying to create something different, just let this be what it is, something simple, and notice if there's tension here. And without grabbing for the leg, move your left knee towards you until you feel a soft stretch. Especially with the outer hips, it's really common for those of us that have a lot of flexibility to try to force ourselves deeper. And for this moment, let's just practice having something pretty subtle be enough. And we'll just stay in this stretch that might be 30 or 40% of what feels normal. For those of us that really feel this stretch a lot, you might even have the foot closer towards the floor or all the way resting. And perhaps in this moment, when you choose a variation that's more bearable, for those of us where this is really intense or a big opportunity, it could be possible that starting softer makes us more likely to return to the practice. No force, no pull, no push, no leverage. And release that. Try the opposite side. Place the right foot, stretch your left foot up, flex the ankle, and stack it on top of the right. Move that right knee towards you. And as soon as you find that soft, subtle stretch, you'll stay. And if this is a different place than you were on the opposite side, that's valuable information. But not necessarily something we need to judge harshly. If what you find is harsh judgment, then notice that as well. If what you find is similarities, then notice that. Perhaps the two sides have more common ground than you realized. Release the right foot down towards the earth, release the left. Take both feet nice and wide and allow the knees to knock in on top of one another. If the shoulders are starting to lift up and towards the ears, you can guide them down the back. And just like before, this doesn't have to be hyper intense. It can be supported. We often find that the greatest benefits to our stretches don't happen in that last 20% of push or pressure. Our lasting results are more likely to be accomplished by staying below that 80% threshold. And instead, leaning into something that's bearable, doable, though exploratory, for a little longer or with greater repetition, with greater consistency. And then bring your knees in and towards your chest. Give yourself a few low back rocks. As you inhale, tail goes towards the floor, low back gets to arch. As you exhale, knees come in, tail lifts. Inhale, tail towards the earth, arching the lower spine alone. Exhale, knees come in towards the chest. A couple more times, tail down, knees in. Tail down, knees in. Release your feet all the way down into the mat. Then extend your legs long, heels heavy on the earth. And place your hands on the abdomen if that's helpful to you. And see if you can breathe low. So as you inhale, allow your abdomen to inflate. And as you exhale, feel your abdomen get smaller and deflate. We can do this by moving the belly but still lifting the chest. Instead, chest is going to stay still, and as you inhale, feel the abdomen move and fill and expand. And as you exhale, feel the abdomen drop and empty. Inhale, let the abdomen widen and expand with breath. And feel the abdomen deflate and empty with breath. Fill up, breathe low. And empty out. And softly lengthen this. Breathe in for the count of 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Then empty out for the count of 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Inhale, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
One more time, inhaling for 6. Exhaling for 6. Inhale again for 6. We'll lengthen it out this time. On the exhale, go for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 2 more. Inhale for 6. Belly still doing the work. Exhale for 8. Last one, inhale for 6. Exhale for 8. Then let the breath be soft, be natural, be as gentle or as easy as it is. You can keep the hands on the body for a sense of grounding, or move the hands away from the torso for a sense of openness. And invite awakening to the body by moving the fingers or the toes, shifting the ankles or wrists. Eventually stretch long or hug the knees and in towards the chest. And shift to either side. And press all the way up into a seat. Take your hands, connect them lightly at your heart. And bowing to self into the practice, I bow to you. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me today. Great job. Please follow us at Driven's YouTube here. Subscribe below. We'll love to see you next time. Have a wonderful week. I'll see you next time.